Dave, I can't help but say this because I guess this is just what I do. But there's this fellow named Michael Snyder. We've had him on the program a couple of times. He's a good little writer, and this thing about from the Daily Bell, they've got a piece that he wrote, and it's about this cashless society. The B system arises. The largest bank in Norway calls for the elimination of cash. And he points out that they're selling this as a way to crack down on criminals and money launderers. But in the end, the truth is they want to be able to force everybody in society to use the banks, and it would enable them to collect fees on almost every transaction. Hey, I just said that about 10 minutes ago. That's before I read this. He says it's an agenda that's being driven by greed, but could also open the door for great tyranny. It's like, folks, do we understand that you have a choice, and it really is the liberty or death thing is the one choice, and the other is that if you're not willing to accept who you are, when you look in the mirror and you see who you are, and you go, well, I got a little fat around the middle, I can deal with that, or I've got a health issue, I can deal with that. I don't have to go and say, well, doctor, what should I do? Well, I'm going to hit you with all these chemicals and a few rads, and you'll be fine. And that may or may not be the case. But if you do, for example, in taking care of your health, what many people have done and said, look, I'm going to look into the possibility of another treatment that may be less damaging to me, and those treatments have been very successful. Many people have been cleared of very serious diseases and maladies through what are deemed alternative techniques. So here's the thing. You either have to accept yourself as you are, or look at yourself and say, these things need to be improved, and then you have to decide, are you willing to improve those things, or are you not? But that's all on the liberty or death side, right? On the other side, if it is, I cannot help myself, I cannot self-actualize, I cannot evolve, I can't really participate beyond just existing in this system that I happen to be born into, well, you have just made yourself a slave. And what will happen, in my opinion, with this cashless banking system, which is spoken of in the Holy Scripture, otherwise known as the Bible, the one world government, the one world currency, your mark of the beast, your little identification number, well, okay, maybe it's in your forehead and maybe it's in your hand and maybe it's not. But you're going to get the mark if you accept that, well, I have to take this, otherwise I won't be able to buy or sell anything. Won't be able to buy or sell anything. What will this money turn into? You see, they develop these systems, and then when they fail, and they always do, you are the ones who are punished for it. They, the perpetrators, rarely are punished for it. And so if they really do manage to usher in a cashless society, your dinars or your ruples or your dollars or your pounds sterling or your francs or whatever, or your euros, those are all going to become work units because you are a worker. I mean, really, is that what we want? Well, maybe not, but that's what we're being faced with. So between now and the time that the B system is rolled out and there's nothing we can do about it, let's make an unusual segue into Dave Kranzler's newsletter, which is it's a subscription newsletter with lots of short sell ideas and so forth. I'll let him tell you about it because he's the author, so he knows all about it. So let it rip, Dave.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I rolled out a subscription service you can access it off my blog, Investment Research Dynamics, and it's a weekly. The subscription is monthly, but it's a weekly report, so you get it emailed to you 4 times a month. And ideally I try to get it into your mailbox, sometime before Sunday night. And as I get this more and more rolling, I may try and push that into Saturday so that you have time to read it before before Monday morning. And what the idea is, and it's not a rigid format like this, but I try to have one long-term short sell play a week, and one or two what I call quick hits. So if a stock has moved suddenly during the trading week and I think it's unjustified, I'll put that in there as a quick hit. And the idea is you short it or you buy put options on it on Monday, and you can make you'll make money on it that just for the week or just for a couple of days or even intraday, because if the pop up in the price of the stock was unwarranted, it's probably going to retrade back. And an example of this, and there's some luck involved, so I'm not going to take 100% credit, but for instance, Weight Watchers, in between Christmas and New Year's, I guess Oprah, she owns 10% of Weight Watchers now, and she sent some tweet out that sent Weight Watchers up like 7 points that week. I mean, it was insane. And I put it in as a quick hit for the following week. And if you shorted the stock on Monday morning, and I mean, you would have made money all week on it, but if you held it until Friday right before the close, you would have made about 48%. And if you had bought the put option that I recommended on it, you would have made 600%. Or up to 600%, depending on when you bought it and when you sold it. So that's an idea of what I'm trying to do. I think I got kind of lucky with the rollout of it, because all of a sudden the market started going down quickly and in bunches, and it's going to bounce up. But I just kind of felt there was a lot of people who were interested in, hey, everyone's made a ton of money on the upside in the stock market. Well, if it rolls over, how do we make money if the market goes down? And so it's also partially an educational tool, because I talk about capital management and timing and all that other stuff, and a lot of subscribers are not comfortable with the idea of shorting a stock. So I put in a lot of commentary and examples about buying put options or using call options. You can also short call options or short put options. There's all kinds of little techniques you can use to make money when the stock market goes down, besides just shorting the stock. So it's partially an educational tool, but it's also what I hope it is that people take it. And it's not like every idea is going to work out. I mean, the idea is, okay, here's a stock that I think is overvalued for whatever reason, whether it's exaggerating its earnings, there's fraudulent accounting behind the scenes, or it's just trading at way too high of a value given the underlying fundamentals of the business. So I present an idea like that, and what I hope the reader does, or the subscriber does, is take that idea and does some more research on their own to decide whether or not it's an idea that they like. So the experience of my subscriber base seems to range from people who are just now learning about puts and calls and shorting the market, to I get some emails from some subscribers who ask me some pretty sophisticated questions. And it's $20 a month, and it's again, I wanted to put out something that was an abbreviated form of I put out these big long research reports that go in depth. There's nothing like them that you'll ever see from Wall Street, and I charge what I think is a very, very reasonable price, or so I've been told by people who've read my research reports. But they're long, and I think a lot of people skip to the conclusion of the report, and they don't read the whole thing. And so I wanted to put out something that was a little more accessible to people who wanted a little more of the Cliff's Notes version of short selling ideas. And so that's what the Short Sellers Journal is all about.
All right, and typically, how long do these? Go ahead, keep going.
One other point. I mean, I made it a monthly subscription basis so that I don't want to lock people in for 6 months or a year. I mean, if the subscriber base gets large enough and people are saying, "Hey, I don't like this monthly thing. Can you do a 6-month option?" I'll probably start rolling that out. But this gives people, hey, you sign up through PayPal through a link on my blog, and you can look at it for a month, and if you like it, you keep going, and and PayPal takes care of the automatic billing. And if you don't like it, you can cancel it, and that's fine. I've had a couple people cancel already, and which actually, I've had a higher retention rate than I expected at this point. And that's, it's no hard. If someone wants to cancel, that's fine. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people might cancel. One guy just said, hey, this stuff's over my head. I'm like, fine. And he'd only been 2 weeks in, and I gave him a refund. So it's not, I'm pretty casual about, it's not like, you're subscribing, you got to stay with it, and, if you don't, you're a loser. It's,
right.
It's whatever.
Yeah. Well, you can only, that's what we say here. You bring these people out, you let them talk, and then after that, it's up to the individual to do the research they need to do to satisfy themselves that it's okay. Typically on these short sells, though, how long does the put last? They vary from what, 24 hours to what? What's the average? I mean, is there an average?
Well, that's a really good question, and it varies depending on the stock itself. A lot of stocks that are actively traded and have a large market cap have you can buy puts that expire on a weekly basis. So the put options always expire on a Friday, and so the stock will either have a weekly put option series or a monthly put option series. So, and you can, again, depending on how actively traded the stock is and how far out you want to go, a lot of these companies you can buy puts out to 2 years. So, my prototypical example is Amazon. Amazon is a Ponzi scheme, and I've got research available on my website where I go in depth to explain why, and I show why with examples from Amazon's financials. But it's trading at today. It's at $600 a share. It's insanely overvalued. It's like 800 times earnings, and the earnings they're not even like bona fide earnings, and I show why in my research report. But you can make a bet using puts that sometime within the next 2 years, Amazon will go below 300. So you can buy, say, a January 2018 put with a $300 strike price, and if Amazon goes below 300 between then and now, you're going to make money on that put. And there's a good bet that it will. I mean, Amazon was at 300 a year ago, so within the next 2 years, I'm sure it's going to go well below 300.
It seems like any company that is doing well, just keep watching, and when it levels off, that's when you should probably place it.
Again, and I talk about, I hammer this home every week in my newsletter. I mean, you can do all the research in the world on a stock, and you can be right on the fundamentals. And I know I'm right on the fundamentals of Amazon, but a lot of times the market will go through periods where it has a mind of its own, and all of a sudden Amazon might start going down. I mean, it looked like it was headed below 500 last week, and now it's back up at 600. And honestly, quite frankly, I think the true fundamental value of Amazon is under $50 a share. And
really?
I can prove that.
Wow.
And my point is you don't want to go all in when you decide to short a company, just like you don't want to go all in when you decide to go long the stock. I mean, what you want to do is kind of average in over time, because you're not going to. The science of playing the stock market is doing your research in terms of the fundamental aspects of investing in a company or shorting a stock. The art side, there's a science and art to everything. The art side is figuring out the timing, and anyone who says they can pick the top or pick the bottom is lying. I have never met in 30 years anyone who has honestly been able to accurately pick the top or bottom in a stock. So, I mean, really, the idea that you want to do, again, going back to Amazon, it's at 600. Well, at some point in the next 2 years, it's probably going to go to 200 or maybe even 100. You just don't know what path it's going to take. So if you short it a little bit now and it goes up, you can make sure that you've left enough room to ride it out as it goes higher, and make sure you're mentally prepared to do that. Or you can even add more to your short position, because again, you don't know the timing or the path that it's going to take, but eventually that stock's going from 600 to 100. And really, and you can use the idea that you were talking about, John, like wait for it to roll over. And again, it's not going to roll over and go down in a straight line. Sometimes you get that. You get what we call a cliff dive effect. We'll see that with the home builders, but as they report bad earnings. But the thing of it is, I mean, so what if you miss it at 600? If you short it at 500 and you feel even more confident that it's going to go to 100, if you only ride it from 500 to 200, that's a hell of a return on your money, right?
Yep, and the risk is that if you exceed the cutoff date of your put, you'll lose your money if it doesn't fall. Is that it?
That's right. And the thing of it is, it's just like with a stock. With puts, you can buy and sell them. You don't, just because you buy a put that expires in January of 2018, you don't have to hold it until then. In fact, one of the things that you want to do is if you buy a put that's out of the money, so say the 300 put, and Amazon over a 2-week period goes down 200 points, that put's going to go up a lot in value. You probably double or triple your money in that period of time. I would sell the put then, because you've already, how much more can you ask for than doubling or tripling your money on a put option trade?
Okay.
How often do you double or triple your money when you go long a stock?
Almost never.
Right, and with puts, if you time it right, you can double or triple your money in a very quick period of time. Now, people who get greedy are like, well, this thing doesn't expire until 2018, and it's only January 2017. I don't care. Anything can happen between January 2017 and January 2018. If you've doubled your money in that put option, even though you still have a year left on it, sell it and move on to the next trade. And the next trade might be another Amazon trade, but you've made your money on that trade. Take it out and move forward.
Okay, so you got $100 and you want to buy 4 shares at $25 a piece, but you want to do a put option, and you're thinking that the money is going to fall to $1. So let's say it does. So the difference between, you got a $24 difference on each one of those shares, and that constitutes your profit. Is that correct?
You're talking about if you bought the put.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's not technically correct, but yeah, conceptually that's correct, because you're probably paying some premium for the put option.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if the stock's at 25,
not counting fees.
Right, not counting fees, and not like if the stock's at 25 and you think it's going to fall to 1, and the put option expires a year from now, you're probably going to pay a couple dollars or $3 for the put option. So between now and then, the stock falls from 25 to 1. You've made $24. The stock's gone down $24, and your put option's worth $24, but you've only made $21 or $22 because of the premium that you paid for the put.
And just so we know, let's say it doesn't work out as well as you thought, and you wind up losing your money. Who actually gets your money that you lost?
When you buy the put, it's whoever sold it to you.
Okay, that's fine.
It's probably a floor. You won't know who's on the other side. It's just like when you buy a stock, you don't know who's selling it to you. And that's another point about the put option. Let's say that you buy a put option on a stock, and the stock doesn't move for 6 months, and your put option expires in 7 months or 8 months, and you still have some money left in the put. You can sell that put, even though you're going to lose some money on it, and buy a further output. If you say, well, this didn't work out, but I know the stock's going lower, you can buy, you can roll the put option out another 6 months. You're not stuck or married to that put once you buy it. You can trade it just like a stock.
All right. I've got a kind of a disturbing note here to ask you about, and that is what it's pretty clear to everybody. I say that as if I'm just casually throwing words around. But if it isn't clear to everybody, it should be, because people have been talking about it for a very, very long time, and that is the destruction of the middle class, the war on the middle class. It's always a war on something. And there's one being directed at the middle class, where you either, what's the result? Well, instead of 3 classes, you only have 2, the haves and the have-nots. That's effectively it. So you have a note here that the U.S. middle class is about to be blindsided by something, and that would be in the form of massive unemployment, a reduction in what manufacturing base is left in the U.S., and another housing bubble or crisis. So that means, okay, my house is now worth less than I paid for it, and I have no job. So not only am I going to lose the house, but I'm also going to be stuck with the amount that didn't get taken care of. I mean, is that the sort of thing people are looking at?
If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, yeah. And I think a lot of people are looking at that, and I think a lot more people are going to be looking at that than we're looking at it in 2008. Because remember, they did a lot of rejiggering and a lot of money printing to keep the system from collapsing in 2008. And I think, I guess it sort of circles back to what you had asked me when we first started the program, was what's changed in the last couple of weeks. And I think that the government is kind of sensing that it's starting to run out of room to print another $5 trillion and to keep, they're still going to keep issuing a ton of debt, but they need that debt for, the war on terror, the war on the Middle East, the war on Russia, the war on China. They need that money that they're spending for other things besides saving the middle class. So I think that whatever is coming that's going to hit, when it hits, it's going to be a lot rougher on the middle class than it was in 2008.
Seems to me that there's a war on sanity, and whoever's waging this war is winning.
That's a good way to put it.
I mean, seriously, it's like it's always a war on something. It's absolutely amazing to me. Is it my imagination? Go ahead.
That phrase is going to become politically incorrect soon, John. You better be careful.
What, sanity?
It's going to be politically incorrect.
Yes, that's how we should refer to these politicians. They're war-ons. Get it? Okay. Bada boom, bada bing. It's funny, these housing prices. I mean, is it just me, Dave, or did the reason that these housing prices inflate as they have done is because the interest rates are low? It's like, well, they're paying less interest, so we can jack the price up because their mortgages will be lower. I mean, a $450,000 house at 9.5%, 10% interest, well, they can, if we knock it down to 5%, then we can inflate the price of that house to almost $1 million. And they'll be paying the same amount with our lower interest rates, you see. So it's good in the short term for whoever sells the house. Yeah. But when everybody's doing it, you've just made $900,000 back into $450,000 because the price of everything remains the same. You just have to throw more paper at it.
Yes.
Is that true?
That's the crux of the problem right there. It's both a function of interest rates and a function of the amount of debt that they let you take out to buy the house. So, if you recall historically, when I was growing up, my parents put 50% down on the house they bought. And we transition into the 80s and 90s, and all of a sudden 20% down becomes acceptable. And then when Greenspan inflates the housing bubble, all of a sudden you don't have to put any money down. But not only do you not have to put any money down, you can borrow 125% of the value of the house so you can pay for furniture. And that whole thing blew up, and that's a big part of what led to 2008. Well, supposedly they were putting in all these financial reforms to prevent that type of scenario from happening, but it's happening again anyway. I mean, the FHA has been underwriting 3% down payment house mortgages and guaranteeing those mortgages since 2008, I believe. And Fannie and Freddie just lowered their down payment requirement to 3%, and in some cases they'll underwrite mortgages that are no percent down. But it gets even better. That 3% that you're supposed to put down, if the seller wants to, at closing, lower the price by 3%, you can count that as your down payment. It's a seller concession is what it's called. Or you can borrow the money from your parents for the 3% down payment and put it down. In other words, you can still buy, once again, you can buy a house and not have any skin in the game. and the only requirement is that you can prove enough income to make the monthly payment, and that's what that's what forces up the price of these homes. It's not about, well, how much house can you reasonably afford over the long term? How much monthly payment can you make on this mortgage now? And that's what the determination is on whether or not you buy a house.
Yeah, this is. Let me ask you this: the government was leaning on banks to make subprime loans. In other words, it was even worse than what we've discussed so far. It's like, hey, 0% financing with no income verification, with credit scores in the low 600s, all of this stuff, 0% down, 30 minutes out of bankruptcy, stuff like this. And then as the investigations went on and people started writing about this, they're going, no, the government was telling these banks, you either make these loans or you're going to have some grief inflicted on you. So what's up with that? It's as though the government, maybe it was the Fed, maybe it was the federal government. I don't really know. I don't remember. But somebody was leaning on the banks to make loans they didn't want to make. Well, what was the point in doing this? Were they trying to cause a problem? Are these people so twisted and warped in their thinking that they would cause these economic distresses so that they could eventually usher in their digital one world currency? Is that really how they think? Is that even possible?
Well, that's a good question. There's certainly evidence out there that points to that, and there's a whole segment of people and analysts out there who, they're you might call them conspiracy theorists, and I don't use that term pejoratively, because I think a lot of what is out there that's labeled conspiracy theory has a lot of validity to it. People think gold bugs are conspiracy theorists that just generically get thrown into that bin. But I think ultimately what motivates that behavior is greed and profits. Look at who's behind the government. It's basically Wall Street. If you look at Mitch McConnell, the three of his 5 largest campaign donors are Blackstone Group, Goldman Sachs, they're number 1 and 2, and JP Morgan is number 4. So 3 out of the top 5 of his campaign funders are Wall Streeters. And Wall Street was making an enormous amount of money off of those mortgages. So I don't know that it was necessarily per se a government directive, unless you want to say, well, essentially Wall Street is the government, which in some respects is true. In a lot of respects is true. And the thing of it is a lot of those mortgage products that blew up the system in '08, they're back again, and they've just been repackaged in different form. So, for instance, you can get a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac guaranteed loan that's 3% down payment, where you don't pony up the cash out of your pocket for the down payment, and you can get those down to, I believe, like a 580 credit score now. The government's already is sponsoring subprime mortgage activity in a big way. It's just not called subprime. It's called Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae guaranteed mortgages. And I don't know if it's necessarily the motive behind it is to eventually cause a big blow up. Again, I think it's the government saying, hey, what can we do to try and keep the gerbil that's on the gerbil wheel, to keep his legs spinning? And the housing market's a big part of that.
I guess so.
It's the same thing with the auto industry. The government takes over GM, and all of a sudden GM cars become popular, and you can get 0%, 80, 90, 100-month loans for GM cars, and a lot of it is backed by the government. And now the auto loans are going to become a big problem also. There's over $1 trillion in auto loans outstanding. There's just all these. If at the end by '08, if the biggest problem was mortgage debt, now we've got mortgage debt, auto loans, student debt, government debt, you name it, debt. We got debt coming out of our eyeballs now.
Yeah, I just really.
Now I will say that I do think that what the government does is they keep the gerbil on the wheel until the gerbil's dead, because they make a ton of money off of that, and then once that happens, then then the government, next we'll come in and seize control of this chaos. And so is it their primary motivation to do what you had suggested? No, but I think it's a collateral motivation, if you want to call it that.
No, brother. Well, as we were discussing at the beginning of the program, it's like everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when the end comes, then there's the beginning of something else. It's just kind of hard to ignore the signs that the new beginning is going to be pretty weird and a complete loss of privacy and any kind of security in the transactions you conduct. That's going to go out the window if they have their way. I don't see how it can be any other way. So here we are. You know what they say: wherever you go, there you are. So
it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, silly, but completely true. Ooh, yeah. I got another one for you. What if the hokey pokey really is what it's all about? You know?
And will we ever know?
And will we ever know? The cherry on the sundae. Yeah. All right. David, you rock, man. You really bring a lot of spice to the conversation. It's great talking with you, and I want you to come back soon. I wish you all the success in the world. And your stuff is in guest media, of course, and people can find an easy way to get to investment research dynamics and to get your short sellers journal. It sounds like a great aid if you really want to, if you want to think it over and get into it. I'm thinking that put options, if you're good at it, if it works for you, that's a faster track to a little stash of fiat currency, a little faster than watching stocks grow, investing and then just sitting on them. Yeah.
Absolutely, and actually, you take your profits on your puts and convert them into gold and silver.
Now there's an idea. Well, I've avoided the stock market like the plague, but I don't know. I may come up with a few shekels somewhere. I think I can still cash in shekels somewhere. And hey, what about Bitcoin? I understand that is there any point in even talking about Bitcoin? Is that just one of those cryptocurrencies that's still out in weirdness land, so far out there that some people play with it and most people don't? Is that how it is with that?
Bitcoin is, it's used on the internet. You can go into the dark web and that, when you transact there, they only take the Bitcoin. I stay away from that. I think the government is sort of taking control of that. The idea behind Bitcoin is that the computer system was impervious to anyone hacking it. Well, I'm sure the NSA has already figured out its way into that thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not really a Bitcoin person. There is a service out there called BitGold, and it's sort of the same concept as Bitcoin, only it's a lot different. I think if you just Google BitGold, you can read about it. Yeah. And I think that's actually a bona fide service, and I think it's worthwhile looking into, especially if you're interested in accumulating gold.
Okay.
And I know that the Soros family is invested in it, which to me tells me there's something to it.
Mm. Old Georgie boy, he's something, isn't he? Why is it the most evil people on earth seem to live forever?
Soros, Kissinger, Warren Buffett, you're right.
Yeah, I can think of a couple of presidents. Anyway, we'll just cut it off there.
Exactly.
Yeah. No point in just doing the yeah right in the face of the thing when it's like, 2 feet away and its fangs are 3 feet long. That's not a good position to be in. Dave Kranzler, thank you so much for your time. It was a real pleasure speaking with you, and let's do this again soon.
Hey, thanks for having me anytime. I look forward to doing this show. This is the second time, and I've been looking forward to it since Sunday night.
Oh, cool. Hey, go Broncos. Yeah?
You got that right.
18. All right. Add the 8 and the 1 together, and it is it's that number. It's the number 9. It is the number of completion. All right. Dave Kranzler, everybody. All right. Until we meet again, hopefully sooner than later, exercise caution in your daily affairs. Listen, you have to do your own research. Don't sit there like little birds in the nest with your little beaks open, waiting for the mama bird to drop in some, otherwise pretty disgusting food. Do your own research and follow the trail. Follow the trail as far as it takes you. It won't hurt you. In fact, undoubtedly, it will help you. Be seeing you.